What is up, everybody? Welcome back to our Friday Workflow webinar series. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you're one of our awesome weekly repeat customers, welcome back. We thank you guys for joining us today. Today on our Workflow series, we are diving into engineering a drive-in concert, and we have some fantastic guests with us as always. We've got Mr. Kevin Freeman, production manager and front of house with Brad Paisley. We have Heath Mahon, monitor engineer for TobyMac, and Jeff Greeninger, production manager for Jon Pardi. Guys, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you taking your time to join us for this workflow series. With this, I'm going to kick this over to Mr. Ryan Smith, our artist and relations manager here in Nashville, to kind of take over and dive into the questions and scenarios with these guys to engineer a drive-in concert.
Awesome. Ryan? Thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate you kicking it off for us. And Heath, Kevin, and Goofy, thanks for joining us today. What I want to do is start off with Kevin, and then I'll ask you guys to do the same. Basically, just tell me how you got started in the business and who you've worked for and how long you've been working with the artist you're with at this point.
Well, let's see. I got started out as a frustrated drummer, somewhat like you. Actually, when I met you, you were in drums in a band in somewhere in Illinois.
Chicago. Yeah.
Been a while, and I figure a mediocre sound guy can make a decent living. A mediocre drummer, not so much. So I've been with Brad for 21 years. Worked with Lee and Rimes before that, Billy Dean, Brian White, Bellamy Brothers back in the 80s. And so I'm on my fifth act and 30-something year career. So
that's awesome.
About it.
Yeah. How about you, Heath?
Well, I moved to Florida when I was 20-something years old. So met a couple guys, ended up doing one of Toby's first tours outside of DC Talk in 2005. Monitor teching that, started doing that, did some other things mixed in with that. And then in 2009, came on full time as the monitor engineer. So been full time with Toby for about 11 years now. So.
Awesome. And Goofy?
Well, I moved to Nashville in 94, started working for sound companies here, kept on taking steps up, sound image, and then just started working for artists. After that, out with Jon Pardi now. This is my 2.5 year. Did Montgomery Gentry for about 18 years, Brooks and Dunn. Some others I just don't remember.
That's great. Well, I'm going to dig into some of these questions and topics here with regards to our main topic, which is drive-in concerts. And Heath, when did your organization start discussing this idea of having Toby do some of these?
Well, we finished we got cut short on March 13th in Little Rock, Arkansas. That was our last show. We loaded in, got done with almost done. We started line checking and shut everything down. That was going to be our last show regardless. We had about 10 left. Not long after that, it's the same promoter that we worked with for that tour that we work with most of the year. It's Awakening Events out of Arkansas. And they started not long after that planning our tour and at least 2 to 3 others. So I think they kind of started looking at is there anything we can do? And I think it finally got narrowed down to this, and somehow they managed to get in with this network of drive-in theaters, and because they all know each other. We had no clue until we got out of the road how close knit all of these owners are. And so they've had 3 tours going on. We did 12 shows. A band called Casting Crowns is doing 29 shows. And then Michael W. Smith, Stephen Curtis Chapman, and Mac Powell have done 10. And then we are actually going back out in a month to do an additional 6 shows, or actually at the end of August. So they started planning pretty far ahead and getting a pretty good jump on getting all this booked and getting it planned and filling out the details. So, I mean, they worked pretty hard from almost, I think, the point in March to where we ended to us starting up at the beginning of last month.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And Kevin and Goofy, you guys were part of the same kind of circuit with Jon Pardi and Brad Paisley shows. Can you tell me about your discussions and when those started? And were both camps part of the same discussion, or was it separate discussions with, I think it was Live Nation?
I don't know. I think probably all this probably started around the same time as far as Jon and Brad. But I mean, really, the turnaround time between we were going to do this and the days we're actually doing it was fairly short. I think they had already, I mean, with the Live Nation people that, they had already arranged for the staging, the venues, the fencing, security, they had their plan, had already, sent production out to bid, sound, lights, video. Everything was kind of somewhat in place by the time, I got brought into the fold. I'm not sure about Jeff,
I know we were kind of on hold. Another act in Nashville, duo country, kind of was dragging their feet, and I guess eventually we got the offer and said, sure, we'll give it a try. So I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, it was a blast. I mean, I could see doing shows like this even after this virus thing runs its course, and not so much have the distancing, just put the cars in there. It's just like a tailgate for 1,000 cars,
Right.
Really, it was really, really fun, I mean, people out there, barbecue grills, bowl, what have you. And I mean, everybody seemed to have a good time. Everybody behaved. Everybody wore their mask when they left their little area. It was, I could see it happening again later,
One thing was neat standing on stage. You felt like you're in the real life movie Cars. Especially like during the encore.
I thought that same thing. It was really kind of interesting.
Well, and
during encore.
People were honking their horns for
at the encore
applause,
it was,
right? So
instead of clapping, they were using their horns and lights.
Yeah, that's
people
great.
had some pretty good air horns.
Absolutely. Well, in your planning discussions for these events, what were some of the major concerns that came up with regards to the way this event was going to go down?
Definitely, the social distancing thing was a big player in that. With Brad had a Zoom call with all the people that were going to work on the show. I mean, we've never done that. We've never done a company-wide one phone call, one kind of meeting like that ever. But Brad he's pretty adamant about keeping all of us healthy and keeping us once this thing was over with, he didn't want to hear about any of us getting sick. And we kind of went with the same crew that we would have done maybe Houston Rodeo with or something, which we would normally do in 2 crew buses, but Brad added 2 more just to give us more space too. So we had like 4 people per bus. That was kind of odd, but it was that's what he wanted to do, just so we could get distance even on the buses. And it was it definitely, as far as the show day, very skeleton crew. The production was already in place. Sound, lights, videos already hanging. Only as many stagehands as we absolutely had to have. And we rolled in there with backline and consoles and set it up and go. It was guests were discouraged. So they were, I mean, even if we had any guests, there was nowhere for them to be. They couldn't be backstage. They couldn't be at front of house. I don't know what they would have done if we'd have had any. I don't know where they would have gone. It was kind of interesting because it's very sparse backstage. Catering was another thing to take into consideration. They were either box lunch or the caterer would bring your plate to you. You know, it wasn't like a buffet thing like it would normally be. I don't know, Jeff, throw some more in there.
Yeah, as I was talking about catering, you said the same thing. We had all of our stuff was boxed up, and there was hardly anybody backstage. We weren't allowed any guests in our camp at all. So it was very quiet back there from compared to a Nashville show, which is usually there's more guests backstage than there is anybody out front. So it was definitely a little eerie kind of to do the show because there was nobody back there.
Right.
And we did have to do the temperature thing with the the QR code on our phones and answer the questions, and everybody was very serious about the health part of it. Let's make sure we don't have any problems. We want to do this. Maybe we want to do some more. I'd love to do some more. They were a blast, but we don't want to have any problems with the ones we do have.
And I was definitely shocked on how well everybody kept their face mask on, or nobody was walking around monitoring, and everybody just pretty much did it on their own all day.
I agree.
That's good. Heath, what about you? What were some of the concerns your camps had?
It was mainly just going from place to place. I think we set up, we had carried barricade with us, and it wasn't even like a barricade, but it was just more a barrier from where the first row of cars was. No cars near front of house. They had to stay at least a couple away. It was a lot of the same stuff, just we had to bring it with us and set it up every day and all that fun stuff. But catering was about the same. We had 2 tents that we'd set up behind the stage. It was just the people that were there. The people that were parking cars and things like that were traveling with us, they had their masks and face masks on, doing all of those things. I mean, we're all kind of in the same boat where everybody one day, and we were in a lot of small towns, and food options were scarce in a few places. So we even had our guitar player, mask, gloves, face shield, making burgers and hot dogs and serving them to everybody one day. But for the most part, it was all boxed lunches, things like that, anywhere we could. Even if it wasn't, our tour manager ended up being our server every day with the same thing. Like, it was just like he basically volunteered if there was food and we couldn't get it, anything that had to be split, he split it and took care of it. So we were in some little towns, didn't quite have a lot of options as opposed to being here in town where we could do it. But we had to kind of adapt and make it work the best we could. So
Gotcha.
I think our tour managers all need to serve us food.
He did. I mean, he was the first one. It was him and one of our promoters would show up, and they'd gear up, and they would, if the food needed to be split, they would split it and package it and pass it out to everybody. It was great.
He's obviously done a lot more of these than Jeff and I have, And I mean, some of his weren't on the scale, but he would have a lot more insight into how you figure out a problem early and avoid it going down the highway. Going, okay, well, that didn't really work yesterday, so maybe try something different tomorrow.
It was an adapting to every day was different. We had to adapt to new scenarios every day. And it was like, well, this didn't work yesterday, so we have to look at this. It's exactly what Kevin said. So there was a new target to hit every day, basically.
I have to take my hat off to the Live Nation guys that they sent out with us. I mean, we had Gary Meyer in St. Louis, and we had Chris Weathers in Nashville, and Mark Elfenbaum in Indy. And I mean, those guys had put an awful lot of effort into this to make sure that it was going to be slick as it should be. They had all the rules down. Here's how it goes. They had sent all of us, printed or emailed instructions, rules. This is how we're going to do it. No there's no other way we're going to do this. This is it, and they thought it out. I was impressed.
Yeah, I can't think of anything different they could have done that would have been better. The Live Nation definitely was on top of it.
Yeah, you're talking about like the barriers. They had Jersey barriers across the front. Probably on any of the 3 shows that we did, the closest cars were probably 25, 30 feet away. And with the spacing in between, and yeah, it was well done. I really would love to do some more.
Hey, I hope we do too. One thing is, I guess the interesting thing was Nashville, the parking lot had a bunch of trees in it. I know St. Louis's parking lot, that one does have trees, and Indianapolis definitely did not have any trees.
Yeah.
So it's something you don't think about doing the show is what trees are out there.
Well, they had the big delay, video out there. I mean, these screens were 33 by 19, and they were way out there. But I think
Plus
just
upstage
being in the atmosphere of actually being at a concert was kind of what people were looking for.
Yeah, I'm going to have Jen throw up some of the slides you guys sent from the shows, and maybe we can just talk about some of the, this was a different setup for you guys production-wise. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and how you went to approach it this time.
I know in Nashville we had to open doors somewhat quick. Traffic was backed all the way up on the highway because obviously instead of people standing in line, there was cars, which was definitely a different experience.
Yeah.
And they definitely directed every car.
We'd been off since we did one streaming show in May, but other than that, we shut down after our March 12th show in Canada. So we sound checked in St. Louis, had a fairly, involved sound check with the band. Brad wasn't there, but we played a little bit and everything. And then we didn't even sound check the next 2 days. We just line checked and went, it was, just a throw and go. But, the production was good in all 3 venues. Great sound, great lights, great video. Lighting didn't have to be all involved because, the show started, in broad daylight and, finished right at dark. So, but the, video needed to be a thing because, you're playing for, people for a quarter of a mile. I don't know how many cars. They were probably right around 1,000 cars at St. in Indy, and maybe a little less than that in Nashville. But as far as that day went, it was really easy. It was kind of festival style. Everything's already there. Just throw your band gear up there, your audio consoles, and let her rip.
There you go.
I think I'd actually enjoy watching the concert in this setup because you can have your own comfortable lawn chairs compared to being elbow to elbow in a normal amphitheater art festival.
We had people set up some itty bitty like cornhole bags in front of their car, like the tiny ones. They were just sitting there pre-show, just playing, just games, anything you could think of. They were doing. I mean, because you got a 2-hour wait. It's like Goopy said, you're getting in so early because you have to because of the cars. And it was interesting watching what people were doing pre-show to occupy the 2 hours before they started.
Right.
Yeah, it's like going to a drive-in movie.
Well,
I think was missing was the playground.
I mean, that was another big challenge for us. Is one day there would be no playground, and another day it's completely flat, and you back the stage. One day I think we had to put the back off the SL100, the back riser that we added on, like over a bench for the playground. Like we had to shift it a little bit to get back because we were trying to get as far back as we could. So we were literally having to watch like dodge playground equipment when we were like, well, we can't put it there. There's a slide or a merry-go-round over there. Let's go 3 feet this way and we can get away from that merry-go-round.
I guess everybody's got to redo their advanced programs. Playground nearby.
Yeah, playground nearby. There was one that had an old kind of like Ferris wheel made out of steel that was one of the creepier things I've seen in my life. It had to have been built in like the 50s. And it didn't like he used it anymore, but it was very, very interesting.
That's cool.
How many cars would they have for your shows in the drive-in theaters? How many cars would they have?
Most of them, I think the biggest one we did was in Missouri, and it was about 400 cars, and that was capacity. We had a few that had a couple of screens. Like Ryan came out to Watertown here, just outside of town, and they had it showing on the second screen as well.
Oh, cool.
So yeah.
Did they distance the cars? Did they have spaces in between them?
Yeah, they distanced. We had one of our guys that was with our promoter. His job was parking the cars. He would lay out the parking lot every day. He had, he just kept orange cones just kept showing up to like go in between, and I don't know where he kept them all, but he would go in and lay out the theater every day. Like, this is where we're parking these cars. This is where we're doing this. And then he parked, and then when we started bringing cars in, he parked them all and put them exactly where he wanted them. So
yeah. I was impressed at how fast everybody got out of there after the show. It wasn't like they had to walk to their car. They just get in the car and drive out, and you look around, all these cars are gone.
Yeah, I was shocked on that too.
Yeah, I stayed till the end, and I just, instead of watching the cars go out and trying to get into that line, I just decided to stick around and help Heath out and pack up some stuff. So that was fun.
There you go.
Yep.
You didn't pack up drums?
Oh yeah, I took some drum stuff apart.
He took the microphones off the drums and packed them all up and all that.
I think Ryan probably still remembers how those things work,
Oh, yeah, a little bit. Nice. So yeah, we're looking at a few TobyMac shots here. Heath's monitor world there in front of the stage. So yeah, it was a great show. I mean, I could tell everybody was really into it, and there was a group of girls there that were there for one of their birthdays, and they were having quite a fun time, and so that was cool. So and speaking of gear we see here in the picture, was there any processes you guys had to go through with regards to gear, cleaning, sanitation, all that kind of stuff before you loaded the shows in?
Making sure that all the mics were sanitized, for sure. Go out and get a big bottle of Everclear and wipe them down real well, and
vodka.
It's cheaper and easier to find than hand sanitizer.
Right. That's great.
Yeah, Elliot, our monitor guy, wiped down mics all the time after sound check and before the show. Every day he was up there wiping the windscreens off.
Yeah. My rule has always been, if it comes into monitor world, it gets wiped off. If it leaves monitor world, it gets wiped off. And I always just, if it leaves me, it's clean. And goes to the backline guy, he cleans it again after he puts it on horns or whatever else. But that's always my thought. There's in and out, it always gets wiped down. So
that's great.
Even more so now. It was always, let's clean the microphones, and now it's ear packs and everything gets completely wiped down.
That's cool. Speaking of crew, how many did you guys have your standard crew come out to these shows?
We had all the guys that actually work for Brad, all the instrument techs. Me and Mark on audio. We had our lighting guy, and we had our a couple of our typical mood video guys. We didn't have any of the extras. We didn't have any of the extra people. There was no reason to have any riggers, but because everything was already in place when we were there. And none of the extra lighting techs or video techs or anything, and we had two of the sound image guys with us, our normal crew chief and monitor tech. Other than that, I mean, it was a very scaled back situation, and of course we're not rolling in to cram 10 truckloads of gear onto the stage, and before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just one truck. It was just backline audio consoles and a playback rack for the So we were very scaled.
Yeah, we took our 2 trucks, which, our last show was in March, actually on the way to Biloxi. Like, turned the trucks around, took everything back to the vendors, and we did this show with 2 bus trailers. Scaled down every console, everything we got, we scaled it down as much as we can just to cut expenses and obviously cut stage space and trailer space.
That's good.
We had the same, all of Toby's crew when we had our, it was funny, we used our lighting guy has a small company out of Atlanta, and he ended up becoming the gear provider for just lights and sound. We used our normal console package, but he brought the PA and the lights, and then he brought a couple of guys from his company that were the audio guys and the lighting guys. So it was 2 extra guys, and that was it. We didn't have stagehands because we were traveling with it. We didn't want to bring stagehands in or anything like that. So the people that were there, we did everything. It was that, and we had the staging truck, and that was it. So our lighting guy, our LD, actually drove the truck. He would drive. Most of the shows were only an hour or so away. Everything was pretty close, so he would drive and then go to his hotel room for the night. So he, and then they'd show back up at 11 in the morning. He'd sleep the rest of the night. But so we only had a couple of outside people outside of Toby's core crew. So it's kind of the same thing. Bring a couple extra guys and get it done. So I will say at 1 o'clock in the morning when we had to go cable ramps from the building, it would have been nice to have had a couple stagehands to have gone, hey, go get those cable ramps. We did miss after those first couple nights. It was, oh, hey, we need to go get all the cable ramps from the projection building or the drive-in building and walk them all back to the stage. So we did miss some extra hands some nights, but we kept it as small as we possibly could and didn't bring those people in.
What time did your show start?
We started at 8.
Okay.
Because we weren't using LED, we were using the drive-in screens. And so we had an opener that just a piano player, he was it. He opened up, and then Toby went on around 9 o'clock. We tried to hold until you could at least see the screen every night, which was usually around 9 o'clock.
Speaking of screens, I saw a question come in. Did you delay the video being fed to the screens to align with the audio?
Well, I don't think that we did, because we had the PA was very small, and we had the transmitters. So there were just enough things going on. That honestly, I don't have a question. I don't have an answer for. I don't believe they did. They used fiber going back to the projectors. So it was a straight run back to those, and depending on where it was. But there were so many different sources between the PA and the FM transmitter that was there. I don't think they did delay the video signal back.
So at your shows, they could listen to the show in their car if they wanted to.
If they chose to, they could do that. We would just tie into the transmitters that were already there. So the signage is already there, and we didn't have to have anybody. We didn't have to deal with that every day. So our video guy actually had all the stuff tied into the transmitter and the projectors every day.
And at John's and Brad's shows, they just listened to the PA, right? There was delays set up from some of the pictures that I saw, right? Okay.
We had, I think they had 1 ring of delays at the St. Louis show, and then 2 rings in Nashville and at Indy. I mean, it was a substantial amount of PA. The Claire guys did the Nashville show, and Mid America did the Indy show, and it was quite a bit. So it was a concert. It was.
Yeah, walking around both of them, I was definitely plenty PA out there.
Yeah,
that's good. So how do you all feel the shows overall went for everybody involved?
I was thrilled. Brad seemed to be very happy. The Live Nation people seemed to be thrilled to death. I'd love for them to scare up some more of these things for us.
I agree with you.
I don't know that there was any money to be made by anybody. It was just a matter of getting out of the house and let's go play some concerts. And remind our audiences that, we're kind of still in business and we'd like for them to come see us when we get going again. But, I think everybody was tickled.
And I would hope either Live Nation or some other smaller promoters, take this model and do it, more shows. Like, Kevin said, I don't think anybody's making a lot of money on these if they are, but just breaking even, and at least we can do some shows. Kind of feel like normal life.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody, during this, and I don't know if there was talk of it or if that was his plan or something, but they were talking about maybe, rent one of these big, these stage line stages for like a month at a time, and maybe do 4 or 5 shows a week for a month, just at that particular venue in that particular parking lot or whatever. Meanwhile, you get 20 acts, 20 shows in there, and not just country shows. It could be, everybody, just the same kind of lineup as you would normally have for a season in these amphitheaters. But, just do it all over the course of a month, load up the stage, go somewhere else, but do that within reach. So you could actually make a tour out of it. You could take, like we did the 3-day week, kind of thing where, we go to the 3 places and then, John went to 2 of them. But, you could have 20 acts doing 20 shows in a month. Would be kind of cool. Production wise, it's set up for a month. You rent it for a month. Sound, lights, video, everything for a month. Sure cuts down on the first show expenses of doing the event.
And I'm sure live, sound and lighting companies be glad to cut some deal just to get the gear out the door.
Yeah, because they're warehouse full right now, and nobody's. I mean, some of the stuff that we brought home from our last show in March, when it came time for us to load the truck for the streaming show that we did, Steel Mill, that gear was still sitting on the loading dock where we dropped it when we came home. So it had been for 2 months and had never, even moved into the warehouse.
Wow. Well, cool. Well, I think I'm going to hand it over to Jason for a little bit here, and he's going to run a few more questions by you. Thanks, guys. I'll be back towards the end.
Thanks, Ryan. Awesome information so far, gents. We've had quite a few questions come through on this topic, and I think it might be good to maybe get this out of the way because I don't think any of you guys did. Did any of you use FM transmit to car stereos for at your shows?
Heath did.
We did, but we used the ones. Yeah, we did. And it was a lot of it was for places where there was a second screen off in the distance, kind of. So it would be the main screen had PA and all that, but it was to set up another set of PA shooting back towards us would have been counterintuitive.
Absolutely.
So in the couple places where we did overflow to the second screen, those cars were using the in-house FM transmitter.
And this was already in-house at this movie theater?
Yeah, whatever. We would just tie into whatever the theater had there.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
Did you check the delay times listening between the live and the FM?
Our front of house guy actually did. He had bought this, and he said it sounded terrible, but he had a small like handheld radio, and every now and then I'd look out at front of house and he'd be like this. He'd be sitting out there like this, just listening to it and kind of like checking it. But yeah, he definitely dialed into it and did a lot of research before we got out there and tried to like find particular ways to be able to mix to that.
Set the delay times.
Yeah, he racked some brains and things like that. So he definitely did work on that kind of stuff prior to getting out there. So
definitely a couple of specific questions to that have come through from the audience today. Like, what audio processing are you using on the mix that you're sending your FM transmitters? Obviously, it sounds like you don't have that answer necessarily, Heath, in terms of what his signal flow was specifically.
Don't exactly. It's the downside of having the monitor engineer come speak.
Or the upside.
Yeah, or the upside.
Yeah, right.
So So I don't have those particular answers. I could maybe shoot him a text and see what I can come up with real quick. But yeah, I don't have that offhand.
Okay. I'm going to try to keep it on this FM topic because there's a bunch of these questions that have come through here while we're here. And you may or may not be able to answer them based on the fact that it was kind of already, sounds like it was already installed at this drive-in theater that you used. So FCC licensing obstacles when bringing your own transmitter.
And once again, it was already there. So I don't know if we had brought one with us. I think I had actually thought if we're taking one with us when we started doing this, I wasn't sure if it was going to be actual drive-ins or parking lots or something like that. So I was actually starting to look into, okay, what do we need to do to make this work? And then when we got further down the line, it was like, we're going to use the transmitters that are already there. Yep. So obviously that took the FCC thing out of the equation for us, at least.
You're assuming that they've already licensed their transmissions at that point and trusting the venue to have everything, their I's dotted and their T's crossed, apparently.
Exactly.
Douglas, that's who that question came from in the audience. I will say that from a Shure standpoint or from our standpoint, we don't really have recommendations or specific answers to the FCC regulations regarding FM transmitters. It's very regulated, and there are some hefty fines involved if you're caught interfering with local FM stations and you're not licensed and you haven't paid the proper dues to be able to do that. So just tossing out that fair warning to anybody who's thinking about using FM transmitters to hit their cars. Make sure you do it properly and go through the proper channels to do that. I just want to get that in. Let's see. I just want to make sure there's no other specific questions on the FM transmitter thing before we kind of shift topics here. One of them came in earlier on. It says, in Live Nation's marketing for the drive-in concerts, they mentioned using a professional PA as an advantage. Would you get a better sound quality leveraging the audio system in cars, or do you believe the PA was a better workflow? And I guess Kevin and Goofy, I don't know if you guys had a show with an FM transmitter or have done one in that case, so you might not be able to make this comparison, but thoughts on between those two workflows?
I really can't speak to the FM transmitter. I mean, I'm sure it's a great idea for certain things. My thing is that if you're going to have a concert, you need to move some people around. You kind of need to have a PA. You need to, where you go to a concert to experience it, to feel it. And, if you don't really want to feel it, put it in your buds and listen to it on your iPod. Certain elements, I can understand using the FM transmitter. Again, I just like having the PA. Yeah, again, I
like
think
to move some air
out there where everybody should have heard it and felt it.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So what's the practice for setting your delay to match between the FM transmitter, Heath? I don't know. Again, this might not be in your realm, but setting your delay between PA, FM transmitter, and video, and making sure that all that stuff lines up.
Once again, I just sent a text to my front of house guy to see if what he did process wise on that. If he gets me back, I'll let you know. But yeah, once again, it was kind of not in my. If I had the transmitter in monitor world, say if we had carried one with us, I would have a better question for that. But since we used in-house, I'm not sure of specifics on that.
Okay, cool.
And I would think too, what I saw, I'm sure Kevin would agree, everybody was outside their cars.
For the most, it was the same thing in our shows too.
Yeah,
I don't think you even hear the car stereos.
The only time it really, I'm sure there were some people that sat in their cars, but like I said, when there was a secondary screen, that was the primary for that. And I don't know, delaying from, it's hard to delay when there's one transmitter from the actual stage to a secondary screen to the PA and all those things when it's one feed and one transmitter. So.
Awesome.
And we were definitely in the Kevin wheelhouse where we wanted the PA to do most of the work. Like that's what we were kind of riding on too. We were the transmitter was there if it was needed, but we were using the PA. That was the plan.
Cool. Let's see. Do you have any suggestions for making sure that these events stay safe, or what are the biggest challenges that you ran into to encourage safe distancing and practices along the guidelines of that? It sounds like the production companies really kind of took care of most of that stuff before you guys got in there.
Live Nation definitely knocked it out of the park. I mean, everybody was pre-planned. You walked in to work that day knowing that, you're going to be wearing your mask. You're going to be, you got hand sanitizer everywhere. You've got to have your temperature taken. You got, they made it very upfront that this is how we're going to do this.
What were some of those items for maybe some of the people that obviously didn't get to go to one of these shows? And I know we talked about it a little bit earlier on, but if you just bullet point, what are the main things that they did to encourage this social distancing and make it safe?
I know when we first walked off the bus, we had to go get temperature checks and grab our phones, iPads, whatever, and do a QR code and answer 10, 15 questions.
Okay. Were there daily temperature checks? Obviously, mask requirements. All of those.
Every time we got off the bus in the morning before we
station was actually outside of the station where they did that was actually outside of the backstage area. It was on the outside of the fence.
Okay.
Basically, you needed to get that done before they would allow you to come into where everybody else was going to be.
Awesome. Full disclosure to everybody here, I went to this Jon Pardi concert as just a fan, I guess, and a guest downtown. And I guess I can walk you through, a little bit about how that went for me to give you some insight on that. There's a photo from my iPhone there. But we pulled up, and you guys had mentioned they had to open doors a little bit earlier because the traffic was just wild on the highway downtown, and they did. And so we were in line in the cars. We pulled up to an entry point. We were meted by a security officer who kind of gave us a pretty hefty questioning of what was in the vehicle in terms of weapons and things like that, and notified us that the vehicle would be sniffed by a dog or multiple dogs, which it totally was. So for those of you that were wondering about security from that standpoint, we were given a color code. So at this Live Nation concert, there was 3 colored sections. You could buy tickets for, I think the gold was up front, blue was in the middle, and red was in the back, I believe. And those were the 3 pricing tiers. We happened to be like the 10th car there, so we got a free upgrade. We bought the cheap seats, and we ended up with the gold seats, and they were like, congratulations, you're the 10th car here, you get a free upgrade, which was pretty cool. So you can see that middle picture there is we were in, it looks like the 4th row or something there.
I walked right by you.
Yeah, probably a few times, right? This was before we even met each other, which is great. Well, virtually met each other, I should say. I was just to the right of front of house there set up. But there was, delay towers, you mentioned plenty, and a ton of video screens for further in the back. And then I don't know if you guys saw earlier in those pictures, but it was like a 3 parking spot setup, right? So there's a red X on one spot that's vacant, and then you park in the middle, and then you have your tailgate space to the right, and then you can see kind of the cattle guards or the bike racks, if you will, that were separating those spaces out. And I know earlier you guys had mentioned that you may have even liked this better, and I'm going to follow suit with that. At my age, I enjoyed this concert experience maybe a little bit better than I would a full crazy amount of people. My own chairs, my own cooler, or whatever beverages I brought that day, and brought my own food in, and it was pretty enjoyable. But everybody was wearing masks to and from the bathrooms. There were more porta potties at this concert than I think any festival I'd ever been to. Like every 6 feet on the outer edge, there was a porta potty just to make sure there was enough. So I love that portion of it as well. So what requirements placed on audiences, concessions, and the concession thing was awesome. We didn't actually order anything, but we saw a few people that did. I don't know if you guys even knew this, but if you look on the bike rack in the middle picture there, you can see this white paper hanging from the inside. And on that paper was our space number and then the app or the website that you could go to that Live Nation had. And we didn't end up ordering anything because we could bring our own food and beverages, and we took advantage of that. But if you needed to order food or beverages, you could go to this. It was either an app or a website, I forget. They had the digital menu. You would select your products, give them the space number, and somebody would bring that food to you in whatever contactless delivery they could do with that functionality. So there were concessions. I remember looking at the menu. It was like $15 for a burger, pretty standard pricing, I think. I don't remember if they had alcohol or not, but
I know Nashville. I know they did not, because they don't encourage drinking and driving. They were giving away free NA beers.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember by what manufacturer it was, but they were driving around in golf carts.
It's on the screens in the picture if you look, but it was a non-alcoholic from somebody, and they had people going around passing them around, and even those were like they had wiped them down, and those girls were wearing masks and staying distant away, which I thought was an interesting promotional period, but. Everybody stayed super far away. The bathrooms, wear a mask to and from as you walk to the porta potties. This was a question that just came through. And I saw a couple of people that had to be reminded to put it on by a staff person. But for the most part, when people were out of their little spaces, everybody was wearing those masks. So
and I did go visit some people out there that had a couple, like 3 spots together. And anytime they walked out, they had to put it on. There was Live Nation walking back and forth in each row aisle.
All
hey,
over
don't
the
forget
place.
To put your mask on when you walk outside. You're fine inside your little cubicle area.
Yep.
And everybody did it.
They really did. I think people were just so stoked to see a live show with a live PA and like Kevin said, feel some of that moving air and get some of that SBL level up. People were dealing with whatever they needed to deal with to make it happen. So I was definitely encouraged to see the reactions from audience. And then I love the bright flashes and the horn honking encore calls that became a thing pretty quickly. I don't know if that followed suit to other cities, but I know that night for Jon Pardi, it was a horn for the clap replacement for the encore.
It happened to us in Indy the next night too, but we only did Nashville and Indy.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Enough about my fan experience. I just wanted to kind of toss that in there for y'all. We've had a couple questions about PA tuning and how does it change for this environment in terms of, obviously you've got chunks of metal and glass going on. Kevin, you want to maybe talk to this? Did you tune that PA or was it kind of just a sit down and dive into however it was set up?
Kevin don't tune the PA.
The thing is, I have my normal system tech was there, with us.
Okay.
With us.
See?
My former system tech was there as the system tech for Claire.
Oh, nice. So
I had 2 guys looking out for me. I did no wrong. All I had to do was walk up and turn knobs.
Did you bring the white gloves?
Absolutely.
I'm not saying a word.
I've earned those white gloves, Jeff.
I know. I've known you a long time.
Okay. Any changes to your mix based on the fact that you got a bunch of metal windshields facing back at it, or no?
No.
Nothing specific. Okay.
On it, make sure that it did. Make sure that people feel it. That's
absolutely awesome. We got quite a few questions in here about specifically related to what were you using to sanitize your equipment? What products are you using, and have you found them to obviously be safe to the gear?
Well, I think that Heath probably was closer to that than Jeff or I.
Honestly, when we were still out in March and kind of wrapped up, we had already started just using Lysol on things. That was our biggest thing. Lysol and alcohol. Those were the 2 biggest things I've always used. And we kind of, when we were out, we didn't know that everything was going to get shut down. Everything was slowly starting to kind of lean that direction. And then when everyone started canceling, we ended up canceling too. But in this scenario, it was literally if something, like I said, I had Lysol wipes and I would Lysol packs, mics, use alcohol on capsules and things like that. But those are the 2 biggest things I used in this whole thing. And then obviously lots of hand sanitizer on my hands.
Absolutely.
basically anytime I came back into my little tent, it was clean the hands and clean the surfaces that all the mics sat on and all that stuff. And so it was just a lot of wiping down and keeping my hands clean for the most part. But those
Awesome.
were my two biggest things: are the bigger alcohol wipes, and then Lysol for belt packs, anything like that. So,
cool. Hey, guests, I just dropped a link into the chat. You'll see it in there. It's service.shure.com. It says, "How should I clean my microphone?" is the rest of that. We are doing some internal testing as quickly as we can with multiple cleaning products on most of our most popular products out there, and trying to update that page right there as we get through products that we think are going to be or might be commonly used to try to clean stuff, and letting you know whether or not that's a good idea or not, and in terms of how much it degrades the product that you're using it on. So feel free to bookmark that page there. It's in the chat. We're updating it as our lab has time to get through those products. And it's a good resource to kind of see what's effective and what isn't, and what's safe and what isn't, I guess I should say. Question in here about sanitizing. Did you sanitize your consoles as well, or just the equipment that was going out to the artists?
I usually, just with the amount of dust and things, I was wiping the console down. I was dusting it and then wiping it down almost every day just to keep everything off of it.
Right.
By the time we got to some of these places, one in specific had just laid down brand new gravel. And when I say brand new, we actually did a rehearsal date. Like we went out, set up. It was just out about an hour and a half outside of Nashville. We set up like the week before we did our shows, just to kind of do a test run on it. The band, it was kind of our rehearsal. The band hadn't been together since March. Did that, and they were literally at this drive-in, had the bulldozers out and the steamroller out, redoing all of the gravel while we were working that day. And then we came back into the show there about a week and a half later, and it was still dusty. So it was just a general clean everything every day and try and keep all the gear as clean as possible and keep dust down and fans. And but yeah, as far as sanitizing the desk and like the top, so the picture earlier, most of the microphones and packs set on that one rack. I would wipe it down every morning and every night. And yeah, so just trying to keep everything as clean as possible.
Awesome. Sounds like a good practice.
Yeah.
Currently,
I would have. There were a few days I would have killed for a parking lot. Let me just put it that way. Yeah.
Absolutely, makes sense. While we're on the difficult scenarios of drive-in concerts, did it ever happen to rain at any of these shows? And what was your protocol?
We got nailed good in Indy. We got some gear being sent in right now
really?
Yes, as soon as we got everything covered, we knew it was coming. There was a huge wind gust that we were told to get off the stage now. And as soon as we got in the runner van to go take us to the amphitheater, a whole big gust. But guess what? There goes all the tarps, even after being taped and tie lined. So we got some gear getting sent in right now, some new wireless.
Oh boy.
Pretty much,
I heard that they were getting beat up over there. I sent Jeff a text. How's your night? He just sent a picture.
And we didn't really get allowed back to stage until they started. I think they delayed cars coming in maybe 30 minutes. It was that close to, I don't know if we can do the show or not. We had gear rental backline, some guitar amps being delivered, and I think we end up using them. Some of the wireless obviously got hit and, stuck them on a hard wire. It's like, we're not sure if we're even going to be able to do this show.
Yeah. I mean, we had a couple of rains during the day. Shows were always clear. There was one night we were concerned. There was no wind, but it just looked like it was going to rain on us the whole day. Like the whole afternoon, we tarped everything up and just literally left it for like 3 hours and waited and waited and waited. And we finally, okay, we're going to do it. Like I said, there was no wind. We were just trying to keep gear safe. And we were loaded in. We just covered it and went back to our tents and sat and did nothing. And it held off. But we got rained on a couple times during the day, but nothing Showtime related. And that one pushed us to our latest. We were line checking as as cars were driving in, just because we tried to keep covered as long as we possibly could.
Yeah, we had a couple of weather planning meetings, but we just watched the storms go by. We didn't get hit by anything.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Must have some bad karma or something.
Yeah. No gear lost on this end.
Because typically, if the farmers are having a bad year, book a Paisley, so you're going to get wet.
Our front of house guy always says it never rains on Jon Pardi, but it rains on the crew all day.
Yep, that's good.
Come showtime, it's fine.
Must be nice. Let's see, a couple questions coming through here from our guests as well. You mentioned that this wasn't necessarily a moneymaker. What was the cost for the audience? Was it by car or by person?
It was by car with a max of 4 people per car.
Yep.
And I think Nashville was $250, $350, and $4 or $450.
I think that sounds about right.
Because I was looking at them, getting a couple spots myself, but I go, never mind. Because they were so tight on letting anybody backstage. I said it wasn't worth, any guest.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember and we bought the cheap ones, obviously. Then we got that free upgrade, which was awesome. But I think it was $250 for the back seats, the nosebleeds, if you will.
Yeah, we were somewhere between I think 100 to 200, and it was per card. So it was the same thing.
I was wondering if they're hiding people in the back of the trunks just to get more than 4 people in, like the old days. Like, Kevin, how'd you do that?
I'm sure somebody was trying to pull a trick. Yeah. Yeah, they were pretty strict about the distancing things and the items that were meant to be keeping people safe. But I don't feel like they were as strict on some of the other items in terms of, like, you probably could have brought a 5th person in, or I don't know.
Hide them in the trunk.
Yeah, but that's what mattered the most for this first run, I think, right? Keeping everybody safe versus enforcing those rules that are meant to keep the pennies in line, I suppose. So it was good. Did these concerts sell out? Do you guys know?
I think the only one I heard was the one in St. Louis, Nelly.
Nelly sold out.
That's what I was told. Yeah, I was told Nelly sold out. And then I think we were maybe in front of Brad, but I don't, that was that day in Nashville. But I think we were pretty close.
It looked packed to me. If there was open spots, it was a few here and there, maybe all the way in the back. I couldn't see back there, but there was definitely a lot of people.
But yeah, it was from Chris that told me in Nashville. So Nelly was the only sellout.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
What is your Cars movie? Yeah.
It was.
Awesome.
I was waiting for the headlights to start lighting up and mouths start talking.
Blinking.
It would be such a different view from on stage.
It was.
From what you're used to seeing, right? As an artist or musician, it would be quite the trip. Hey, what are you guys using to protect your cabling from the front of house pick because people are driving? It's just yellow jackets, right?
Uh-huh.
Standard cable ramps, nothing extra because of the car loads. Awesome.
I know we didn't even use our snake. We ended up using Claire's for ours, which was fine. Let them drive over. You know what? I take that back. I think we did last minute end up using our front of house snake because there's some little glitches going on.
There really wasn't a lot of traffic, driving over the snakes. I mean, when you're thinking there's only like 2 or 3 rows ahead of you between front of house and the stage, it really wasn't, with the exits on either side. It was pretty well thought out.
Awesome. Any notes on how the artists respond to the different style of audience energy? Did they make any changes to the show flow to accommodate?
Not in our camp, no. I think Brad had a ball. He was,
yeah, just happy to be back on stage in front of some people.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think we had to cut a couple songs in our set list because they just, I think we were supposed to do 75 minutes, and I think the band leader got a little long in the set list, so we were, getting close to curfew time.
Gotcha. Yeah, you mentioned earlier how fast those people got out of there, and I remember right at the end. I was like, I don't want to be stuck in traffic. So I ran to the bathroom and sat on the tailgate. And before I knew it, somebody was like, hey, man, you got to get out of here. And I was like, it's been like 7 minutes, man. They had it. It was a well-oiled machine for being the first one that they had done down there. I was pretty impressed, to be honest. So
I was surprised in Nashville.
All 3 days it was that way. They were just boom, they're out of there.
Yeah.
I was surprised in Nashville they would make pickup trucks put the bed towards the back. But in Indianapolis, they didn't care. I don't know what the reason was. Maybe people standing in the bed for sight lines.
Yeah, I backed my truck in, and I was ready to put the chairs in the tailgate, and somebody came by and said, hey, man, you got to flip it around. And I asked him, I said, do you know why, what the reasoning is? He said, I'm just a worker. They tell me you got to flip it around. So I never really got the answer, but yeah, we had to flip the truck around and not use the tailgate. So still, it was all good, but it's interesting to know that they let that happen in Indy. So
yeah, because I was watching that the second day, and I was thinking maybe because Nashville is the exit because they're backing up towards the curbs.
Right.
But I could not figure out why they would not let you. Maybe just the sight lines.
Yeah, that, or like you mentioned, the quickness of getting people out and having every car face the same direction. But sounds like it wasn't an issue in Indy. So, everybody they're working through how to make this thing work right and please the people. So I didn't give them too much of a hassle.
They obviously put a lot of thought into it. I was impressed with just how smoothly everything went.
Yeah, likewise.
Just having a couple under their belt. We were the guinea pigs for that weekend.
Totally. Hey, Ryan.
Hey there,
buddy.
how you doing? How's it going?
Welcome back.
So I just saw a question pop up in here. It says, are the days of multiple acts on a stage on hold?
I know we were supposed to have in Nashville and India, we were supposed to have a little opener or a DJ that went away like a day before or day of.
Yeah, same with us. Yeah.
We had an opener, but it was him and a piano. It was the one guy and the piano, and that was our opener. So it was as small as you can get it on that front.
Yeah. Another question I saw here, how did you guys deal with frequency issues or interference, any RF issues? Did you guys experience any of that?
It was a normal as far as that went, as far as, the microphones, the guitar packs, the, ear monitors and all that stuff. It's a normal day.
Yeah. And
I know Elliot used, the wireless workbench.
Yeah. We were so far out of the country in some of these, there aren't a whole lot of these drive-ins that are close to cities. So I didn't have I had a whole lot of wide open spaces as opposed to normal shows where even with you guys being in Indy and Nashville, we were 2 hours outside of cities most times where we were. So I did not have a whole lot of problems with it.
That's good.
Yeah, I think we were clear, and I didn't hear any dropouts in anything in Nashville. Being right in the middle of downtown.
Well, glad to hear that. Definitely. Well, I think that's about it as far as questions at this point. One of the last ones I had here, what are some other ways you and your artists are keeping busy during this time period?
Let's see here. Other than building, a deck on the back of the house, gardening, all the projects. My wife's got a laundry list as long as your arm of projects to be done around here. Brad seems to be staying busy, interrupting people's Zoom calls and doing a lot of stuff just on social media. And he seems to be having a ball with that. Just released a new video day before yesterday. So he seems to be doing something. I think little I've talked to him, I think he's just chomping at the bit to get back to work too.
I know we've
done with John. We've done a couple tapings in his garage, his shop. One for Amazon, and we did one a couple days ago for I think Good Morning America, which should be on any day now. He's just working on his property.
And your camp, Heath, Toby, what's he up to?
He put a little EP out of lost demos towards the beginning of this, some stuff that he never put on records. He kind of finished a few things up, and it was about 6 songs. He did that, and he and the band have done some kind of, everyone records their part separately and then they put it all together, kind of Zoom style. They've done like 5 of those that are up on YouTube. And as for me, I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and my wife works from home, so I am in full-on dad mode here. I made lunch right before I came up here. I made lunch for the kids right before I came upstairs for this. So that's kind of been my role during the day while she's working. So
awesome. One question we always like to get in at the end here is favorite Shure product. Go ahead, Goofy.
I'm really impressed by this. I'm highly impressed.
Yeah, you like that? That's our MV51.
It is great.
Yeah.
It's simple enough. I can't screw it up.
I don't know if they got to hold up. There's some Shure stuff around here. I mean, I'm the gray-haired guy. You just can't beat a 58. That's by far my favorite. Brad uses a Beta 58. 57. That's the Swiss Army knife of instrument mics. I'm just old school.
There you go, Heath.
You can't beat the Axient digital stuff. The bandwidth alone is the seller for me. As the guy who has to tune it every day, it's having the length of the spectrum is a very nice thing to have. So instead of having a 40 megahertz spread, you can't beat it.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, I think we're going to wrap things up here. Let me see if there's any other last second questions that came in. I don't see anything at this point. But yeah, I think we'll wrap things up here. So I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and thank you for your time. And glad to see events like this happening, and everybody respecting this social distancing and doing that. So thanks again. And basically, we've got some events coming up that we want to mention before we wrap up here. And so we have our Pro Tech Talk on Tuesdays, which is every first and third Tuesday of the month at this point. So, and then on August 7th, which is next week, Friday, we'll have another workflow webinar series, Tales from the Tech Support Trenches. That's going to be fun. We'll have some awesome employees at Shure, Tim Veer, I believe, and a few other folks come on and talk about some tales they've had from working in tech support. So please join us for those, and I hope everybody has a safe and happy weekend. And thanks again for joining us. Thanks, Jason and Jason Waffle and Jen for putting the slide deck together for us. And everybody have yourself a wonderful weekend. Thank you, attendees, for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.